obvious that a family does not belong in court. Remember, a court views the couple as an entity for the acquisition of money to use for them, not us. The courts do not view a couple as a parent trying to maintain the relationships with their children post-divorce. These are two diametrically opposed positions. It is our hope to bring the public awareness that the laws are corrupted and are filled with flaws, and that this panel has enough experience with courts to know what bad laws are and what laws should be eliminated. Family Law Insiders today on FIT TV. And my family law insiders are Jeff Bloom, mediator on my immediate left, and to his left, Gary Jacobs, family law reformer. Okay, we got together before the show and we made a list of some of the things that we're hoping we could use rather than what exists in law. And here they are, in family court. One of the most important one that I can think of, and we teamed up together on this one, is a trial by jury. Now, why do we need a trial by jury?
Well, I mean, I think the people, when they founded our legal system, they realized you can't have one person put somebody in jail. That everybody carries their own biases to the table, and I mean, we would be horrified if we found out that a judge, one single judge, put somebody in jail for any length of time without any other input. And that's why we have, it's supposed to be also our peers. So I think everybody knows when you go to court, especially in family court, the judges, the lawyers will always say, oh, watch out for that judge, she hates men. Watch out for this judge, she hates women, she hates blacks, she hates Hispanics, whatever. So we all know that, listen, we all have biases.
You all find out these predisposed things before you go into court. This is going to make you feel good, right?
Right. And then in the case of, I mean, this happens every day that, actually it's even worse than what we're talking about, because not only does a judge put somebody in jail, in many cases, it's a judicial hearing officer, not even a judge.
Right.
And then what they do is, the way they get around that is they take their decision after they heard this case, they go to a judge and they say, well, here's what I heard, here's what I think. Boom, rubber stamp it. Now a judge put the person in jail. But I don't think any judge should be able to put somebody in jail without a jury.
Right, well, absolutely.
I have a different opinion about the juries. The way the jury system works now, I think it's craziness. I mean, look at the Casey Anthony trial, the OJ trial, and the most recent, there was another trial, I'm trying to remember.
Those are criminal
most recently, yeah. But I know we're talking about family court, but just juries in general. Jurors are just not, I think we need professional jurors.
But still more than one opinion.
I would sooner get 8 bums in the street off
yeah,
than I would leave it up to one judge, because I'm going to get a varied amount of opinion within this group of people I decide to hire off the street.
And hopefully somewhere here, some here, and in the middle.
And yeah, and if you get a majority decision, that's probably going to work. I mean, a 4 to 3
But are you talking about juries
work.
in regards just strictly to family law? Is that what we're, is that
Yeah,
topic, or just juries in general versus?
No, we're talking about the family law, and I'll go a step further. I think if you're taking away somebody's custody, because we talk to people all the time who lose custody, and they'll all tell you they would rather go to jail. Or I have a vet who wasn't allowed to see his child. He said, I'd rather be in Iraq and get shot at than have my child taken away from me. So you're going to take away somebody's child. You know what? That's pretty damn severe.
The very reason why you exist.
Should have a jury for that, to take away someone's child.
You better have more than one person involved in that decision.
How scary is that? One person could take away your child from you and let you see that child for every other weekend and for one dinner a week. One person can do that. That's way too much power.
And in regards to the jury versus the judge, and we talked about the benefits of alternative dispute resolution, where you have a judge who's going to make a decision based on just on the law period and what he or she has read in that 5-10 minutes, maybe an hour before the case went on. Whereas in a mediation, you know, the parties have inputs into what is going to happen. So why have, no matter how good the judge is, assuming that works, or a jury, why have somebody tell you what to do versus when you have an option to have an input into it?
That's right, Jeff. A lot of people think that the mediator is there to determine. He's not there to determine. But surprisingly, people begin to, after you get to the second session or so, they begin to get self-involved in it. Oh, I can make a self-determinative decision here. And that's what changes the whole picture. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is basically a child support. There's a few of them on child support, which seems to be where many of the egregious things happen in family court law. Child support obligors should be evenly matched with the recipient's ability to earn income. Right now, the current standard is to take a percentage.
Right, no matter what, 17% for New York, 17% for one child, 25
for two, and 29
for three,
right?
And it goes a little bit up from there.
And that's off of gross income, like in many other states. It should be net income anyway to begin with.
Well, it's gross and it's minus a couple of deductions.
Well,
yeah,
FICA and stuff like that. Yeah.
So even when you go through mediation and you're negotiating what child support should be, you know, the parents got now they have new expenses. They're both living separate apart. They both have separate rents, utilities, food.
And by the way, not everybody
So-
knows what they're going to be. When the judge is making that decision, at the time they make that decision, doesn't mean that the following year, when plans get fully underway post-divorce, that you don't have other implications. You can't. How are you going to be able to tell that
my
much?
feeling on that is regionally they come up with an amount that you get for if somebody's paying child support. You come up with an amount because, in my opinion, it costs the same thing to feed a child if the parent makes $1 million,
Right.
or if they make even $10,000. It costs the same thing to feed the child. So instead of making an incentive, say, look, the basic need of the child needs to be met. That's the number that we use. And forget, because this takes away, what happens is if the woman isn't earning a living and then they get divorced, and then she says, you know what, I'm going to start my career. Her lawyer says, don't go back. What are you, crazy? Because he's going to take you back to court and lower his child support. And
Yeah.
the husband, the same thing. The guy go, you know what?
Reverse
So I
negative-
want to work overtime and lose that because then she's going to take me back to court for an upward mod.
Right, no,
it's not
true.
American.
There's things like that, but and I agree with that theory. But then the counter argument to that is they go by the lifestyle of the family prior to the divorce.
But you know,
So if they
lifestyle's
are
changed.
so if they are millionaires, right, and they went out to Red Lobster and these fancy restaurants every night, and they never went in, so then they make the decision based on the lifestyle that they were used to, not what's reasonable.
But that's just crazy
And you
because
see these crazy.
There has to be a
In
new
real life-
reasonable.
Yeah, in real life, if
Yeah.
you lose your job, if you're married and you lose your job, your lifestyle goes down.
Yeah. Right,
You know,
absolutely.
that's just the way things are. But you're splitting that asset, so theoretically they both have the same amount of money because you're splitting the marital assets close to 50-50, whatever is equitable. But then after that, everybody should have an incentive to go out and be successful. That's what America's all about.
Absolutely.
And on the same topic, what idea or who decided to create that you should lose your license for some reason? Taking away your car, to lose
that
your
for lack of
license.
paying child
but
support?
yeah,
Taking
remove
away-
from the family court.
Taking
Why?
away somebody's ability to earn a living because they couldn't earn a living.
This is very smart because you're not paying enough. You're going to take away his opportunity to do what he ordinarily would do to provide money for you. Now you're going to stop that happening.
But again, shouldn't that be a case-by-case basis? What about, what if you look at two extremes, where you're looking at somebody who's trying to, and we discussed this before the show, let's say they're supposed to pay $1,000 a month and are only paying $800 because of the circumstance. That's different than somebody who just completely ignores paying it all.
But still,
And that
the
would
ways
be
to get the
different,
money.
but the professional licenses takes on its own monster face.
Right.
That's a whole different world.
And listen, this day and age with your GPS tracking, if they say, well, we want to see where you go, and you know what? Put a GPS tracker and see, does the guy really go to work every day or does he stay home every day?
Great idea.
To put somebody in jail.
What does that cost?
You know,
Is he, or
certainly-
she working off the books, so
Right.
there's no proof
well,
of
that's
income?
what I'm saying. Find
you know?
out if they say, look, he's working off the, because some people, because it's so
You guys are
burdensome,
making too much sense here,
they
fellas.
work
I'm
off
telling
the
you.
books. So
I'm
put
sorry,
a
we're
GPS.
making sense on that.
You're making too much sense here. This is no way we're going to get through this the way we're getting through it.
But these are just common sense. I don't
But
even know how
see,
anybody
this is-
could object to it.
And the funny thing about it is there's law that's codified to take a license away from somebody who's got a profession. He spent his whole life getting to that place, and now you're going to take that away. Just like children, you spend your whole life thinking about, I don't want to have a family. I'm going to have it for my whole life, and now I'm going to take that away. So I don't know. There's no advantages there. Let's go to custody for a second. You must start with a presumption of shared custody. This is a no-brainer. How do you not start with shared custody?
Well, you can have that language, and it would have to be such a language that it makes sense. But now the way that the system works is there has to be a residential parent, right? Because it has to be a permanent address where the children are staying more often than not.
Yeah, but remember, we're
So-
trying to change.
We're changing it. So that's
Yeah,
so my
yeah.
question to you is, I'm trying to think, how would you do that? How would you word it?
Well,
in
it
shared
works.
custody?
It's mostly
In
decision-making.
Scandinavia, it works that it's a presumption of shared. First of all, there's no money incentive for one parent to have more than the other. Obviously, you can't have 50-50 exactly. One will be 40, but there's no incentive. So the basic is that you try to work. You don't even go to court. You say, all right, between us, we'll work out the days. You know, one parent will live close, to the other parent.
Right.
And it does work out because there's no financial gain to say, hey, you can't have. Actually, it's the other way because the gain is for one parent is always making more money. For the other parent to say, you know what, I'm going to work with that parent because I want them to spend more on the kid. So there's actually incentive because of that to do better. And it really does work. In there's almost no family court system in Sweden, in Norway.
There's hardly any
in
collection
Denmark,
agencies or
because
anything like
there's
that.
no money in it. So why do it? They take the money out
See,
of it.
we're providing money, and the belief system is carried forward. So now they have this narrative of, well, you have to go get child support, you have to get custody, and you fight to win these things. And
Right.
when you win all these things, what's happening is the kids are falling through the the trap.
And also just because of the culture now, even when they go to mediation, somebody will always say, because people call me all the time, they'll say, well, I'm entitled to 18% of his income, and I'm entitled to 22% for,
Yeah.
What do you mean you're entitled? It's a fake number that if somebody changed it tomorrow to 50%.
I hate that word. I hate that entitled word, yeah.
No, and again, you're talking about doing away with the best interests of children. Let's say you go through the litigation process, and it's a custody battle. You're putting your 10-year-old son or daughter on a stand,
It's crazy.
and the judge
Yeah,
or
it's nuts,
attorney's
yeah.
asking, who do you want to live with, mommy or daddy?
Yeah.
And you put a kid like that, kid in
Yeah.
in a situation like that.
My feeling is the best interest of the child is a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
They don't care about the best interest. Nobody cares
Not
about
as
the
long
best
as you have a
interest of the
win and
child.
lose in the adversarial system. You
Isn't the
can't
best
have it. It's
interest
not
of
going to
both
work.
parents? That's common sense. The studies are clear.
All right,
Both parents.
We're so good at this, we're never going to get to the end. All right, so here's another one. No lawyer and judge should be in the same room where political contributions are connected. Now, we know that goes on, and we know that there's favoritism between the lawyer and the judge. How
You mean the judges liking certain attorneys?
if
And it carries into the
if you
case?
contribute to a judge's portfolio to win
Campaign.
in some way, how are you going to then represent a client fairly in that scenario? You're
Well,
automatically
the whole system
biased
is,
by
to me,
it.
is crazy of electing judges because
Yeah.
the judges aren't allowed to speak out on the issues. It's against the rules. So when they go out, it's just a popularity contest. So,
Yeah.
and honestly, before I got involved, if I saw a judge, I'd pick the name that I like. I'd pick maybe if I saw a sign. I don't know who's a good judge and what's a bad judge. So there should be a bipartisan committee, with professionals
To select
and-
judges.
To select judges, and then you review them, and if they're good, and it's very easy if they get overturned a
I
certain
would-
amount of
I would
time.
go one step
Do you mean
further.
like
How about
selecting them like a mediator or an arbitrator? Kind of going through the selection process?
I'd take a civilian review board on,
Right.
on a
Some-
judge.
That's what you
Yeah.
want to take the politics out of it as much
Yeah,
as you
then
can.
take a civilian review board.
So maybe there's some politics, there's some citizens, there's some professionals like you guys who are mediators, but
Yeah.
there has to be something other than we vote for a judge, because what we get is the bottom feeders. Really, you would
Right.
think that for a judge,
And those judges are politically favored by
Right.
their own groups.
but you would say that for a judge, you want the best person to be a judge. What we do is get the lawyers. The judges are lawyers.
Can't
who
make
suck.
money. They
They-
suck.
but honestly, they sucked as lawyers because they had crappy personalities.
That's right.
They didn't show up to work. They didn't follow. So what do we do? I can't make a living being a lawyer, so I'm
But-
going to go be a judge, and then I get a
But
guaranteed
they're
pension.
the local political
That's what he said.
club every single week.
I know a very prominent criminal law attorney on Long Island. He's very good at what he does, and they wanted him to run for being a judge a couple of
Man,
years
What are you,
ago.
crazy?
Yeah.
He says, "Why should I take a pay cut?"
Yeah.
And I mean, let's be clear. There are some judges who do it for the right reason. I mean, they're not all. But
Right.
for and actually, the ones who go into family court, I can't think of any that don't stink. They're horrible. They're incompetent. They're biased, and they put them in.
And they're in a bad place to begin with. Family court's not a good place to have have a judge. It's
I-
really a bad place.
I'll agree with that.
I've said it
Which
on
is the
some
reason
cases.
why we're creating new rules. All right, so let's continue for the new rules. No backroom deals allowed by attorneys or judges. We know that this goes on. You
You
see
mean
them.
negotiating with the judge and
Yeah,
chambers.
a
without the
lawyer
parties?
shouldn't go back without the parties being available. The
agree.
parties should always have that line. There should be no
No off the
backroom
record.
deals, no off the record.
Everything should be on the record.
And what about the minutes and stuff like that?
Well, I have issues with the minutes because, first of all, they're recording most of them in the court now. They have a recording in family court. Why shouldn't I be allowed to order the damn recording and go to the free market and see who I can get the best price? What they do in Supreme Court is you have to go to their people, pay, I think it's $4.50 a page.
Right.
They're
Right.
paying them anyway. You know what? Let me bring
money-making
in my own
proposition.
First of all, I think there should be cameras like they are in Florida, because what do they have to hide? Why it's an open court, so I can sit there. What do the people have to hide that they don't want a camera or recording in the courtroom? It can only help. They have it on policemen.
All events, all court proceedings should be filmed and at least heard audio.
Right, we
At
want-
least the
we want
audio.
police officers to carry cameras now, and everybody's
Body
saying,
cameras,
absolutely,
Right.
have them wear it on their neck, have it in their car.
Meanwhile, 50% of the population that's getting divorced out here, and let's face it, that's what the numbers show. We're all getting hit.
God forbid you show up in court with a camera. I think they'll take you down in handcuffs and put you in jail.
We tried that.
What are they so
I tried
scared
to
of?
take a camera, and they wouldn't let me do it. Okay, next, abuse or domestic violence allegations must be removed from the family court to a criminal court or to some other venue. If you once an allegation of abuse starts the process of it infiltrates the custody decision. The judge gets influenced by that and carries that language forward. It gets very difficult.
So you're saying it shouldn't be brought up at all in a family court situation? or-
If it's brought up, it immediately gets dealt with in a criminal
Well,
area.
let's put it this way. I mean, if somebody really is physically violent, it's a criminal act. It's not a family.
That's right.
It should
Correct.
be. It
But how,
should
would
be
you,
treated.
but how would you leave it out? What if the process has already gone through the criminal system, or it's going through, and there's the allegations? Is it not admissible?
No, you're saying that one doesn't happen before the other. In most of these cases in family court, the allegation is occurring early on in a case.
Try to influence the case.
To influence the case.
Sometimes it's a prior or a reoccurring.
But let me ask you this, Jeff. If somebody did slap their wife or the woman slapped the husband, does that mean they should never see their kid?
No.
It doesn't make them a bad. Maybe they have to have a supervised
gotta be a case-by-case
transfer.
basis, you know.
But automatically, but the way it is now, if you end up it has domestic violence, that's it. This guy can't see his kid, or the woman can't see his kid.
Yeah.
Okay, you got another one. Ready? This is an interesting one, I think. Let's establish some kind of flat fee for an attorney to earn. We talked about this before the show. Yeah, this is something that it's important to me to understand that, there are attorneys out there for the same procedure with someone else who are making 10 times, 20 times what another attorney would do. How does this happen? Who's a better attorney? Are we always going to get a better attorney when we spend more money?
But does it make sense? I mean,
It doesn't make any sense.
There's no incentive for an attorney to settle the case.
Absolutely.
It's the other way around.
Thank you very much.
If you're a good attorney,
in all fairness, you have some good attorneys that will, but for the most part, you
listen,
don't.
if they're a good attorney, they're out of business. If they could settle the case on the first visit.
This guy took a contrarian pill this morning, didn't he?
We talk about doing these issues.
No, I'm only kidding you,
we're
but
trying
yeah.
to look at all sides and what other arguments are.
But the
when you
reality
have
is, you have to even the playing field a little bit. If they have an incentive, they have all the incentive to make the money. The litigants have no incentive to make it.
And
we're only going to lose money. We're never going to make any money.
When an attorney who's billing hourly takes in a case, they're already figuring out, okay, how far it's going to go, what they're going to make on it.
Right.
And when you're with a big firm,
Once you
and I
fill
know
it-
this just from my legal background, with being running litigation departments, that if attorneys have to bill so many hours, a quarter, a year, a month, well, they're not working.
Which is usually more than 40 hours a week that they bill, but that's.
It's out there, yeah.
But I also
the
think
unethics are out there.
There should be a percentage of your income. I mean, you can't take somebody who makes $50,000 a year and the lawyer say, okay, this divorce is going to cost $100,000.
Right.
And it's because they make them spend all their kids' college money.
And they do. It happens all the time.
All that. There's got to be. I believe in a flat fee. A divorce costs this much,
Or at
Believe me,
least some kind of controlled fee. I don't know
right.
what you
well,
want
then
to call
you can go to the judge and say, okay, because this case did this, it's a little bit more, so we're going to ask the court for leave to charge another 10%.
But
this
when you say a
open-ended-
flat fee, you mean a flat fee from start to finish?
Start to
so
finish.
I come into you as an attorney and you're handling my divorce and you say, Jeff, it's going to cost you
$5,000, $10,000.
Then the guy knows he can't string it out forever.
That's motion practice, everything's
Right.
nuts.
So I think they go in, they say, look, I'm going to fight for custody, or I'm not going to
It
fight
makes
for
them
custody.
get prepared before you go in. Their paperwork's going to be tighter. They're going to want to know more about what's going to go on. You're going to be more real to the fact and events of the case.
Then the incentive is to settle it before. So, hey, I got $5,000. I'm going to try to settle this in 3 visits.
Right.
And I still keep my $5,000.
That's right. Oh, I don't have to go to 5 visits.
And there are some lawyers who do it. I mean, I've had a lawyer who did that, said, look, give me a flat fee, and his incentive was to get done as fast as he can.
Okay, every family court should have mediation attempt before any litigation occurs. This is what we always tout as mediators, to get that first petition to go to a court instead of it being for litigation.
You have to go to mediation first.
You have to
There's
have
some states that have that.
there's some-
Tennessee, Florida,
Jersey,
some cases.
Oklahoma, in Connecticut, I think also
Connecticut,
has
some
one.
cases.
Jersey has one also. We're surrounded by mediation-friendly states, by the way,
except for New York.
except for New York.
Yeah.
We should all know that.
Yeah, it's something that, what they got to lose by, talking to a mediator and see if they can resolve, the issues that they can resolve. I get couples that come to me all the time, even on a consultation. We can't agree now on what day it is, how we're going to sit in a room, but you'd be surprised once they sit down and start talking, any issues become important to them, the children and the assets, they can do it. They can do it.
We just want to live and earn whatever minimal amount of money we can make as mediators, is what we always say, before we pass on, because the litigation system is lucrative and everything is working in that direction, and that's unfortunate. Okay. No interest, no penalty if eventually incarcerated. If you're incarcerated, there shouldn't be. How are you going to pay what you're supposed to owe in child support? And then while you're in jail, and they're going to tack on interest and penalties along with it.
To me, it's setting people up for failure to stay in the system. First of all, we're against the whole
That's right.
incarceration. I don't
That's
think
right.
anybody should be incarcerated. It's debtor's prison. It was outlawed for a reason. You don't put somebody in jail because they couldn't pay a debt. And so what, they have a way around it, saying, well, they're not putting them in jail for the debt. We're doing it for not paying. For not living up to the agreement to pay the money.
Right.
But you don't put somebody in jail. There's so many other things you can do to get the money.
No,
I mean,
that
listen,
system is definitely messed up. You even had that, case that we were talking about where the dad was paying X amount instead of the amount he was supposed to pay. So
Right.
because he wasn't paying the right amount, they put him in jail.
Right.
I mean, that's craziness. He's obviously making an effort.
Right.
So things like that should be a case-by-case basis. You know, you have to take
But
a
I
look
think you
at
have to take incarceration for child support off
Off
the
it-
table.
off the table
Who should go to jail for? I mean, listen, you have so many ways in this day. Listen, worst case scenario, they could hire a private investigator and say, is the guy working off the books?
But and it shouldn't be left up to the spouse to make the determination either, which is another issue, right?
Oh, yeah,
A lot of
we
times
went-
the judge will say, "Oh, do you want him
I
incarcerated?"
couldn't
What?
believe my eyes when I was sat there at a court case in Riverhead when I
Dr.
actually
Rivera.
heard the judge say,
He asked his wife,
Yeah.
do you want him incarcerated?
"Are we talking?" She says, "This is the judge. I forgot her name now. What's her name?
I don't remember
Oh,
her
it doesn't matter. Are we talking about incarceration today?
Right.
What is she being paid for?
Asking the ex-wife.
What is she being paid for?
That's craziness.
It's nuts.
That gives her the power to. She could do it for spite, and she did.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Well,
like.
actually, the funny thing is, this happened to say no because there was a bunch of people there, and then we went back the next time, and she said, "Now I changed my mind. I want him in jail again."
Yeah.
Okay, back on the table.
Well, that's craziness.
How do you give somebody that power?
That's nuts.
This is why the custodial versus non-custodial parent has to end. That's
That would
that's
never
a
happen.
second-class citizen, is a
This
non-custodial
would
parent.
never happen if if this couple had shared custody. Never have happened.
Right, there would be no need for it. And then we talked about in jail, once you're incarcerated for some reason, that we're also paying the taxpayer. We should know that the taxpayers are paying for the ride.
Right. It doesn't help anybody. Who does it serve?
Who does
and
it
honestly,
serve?
here's when you said the best interest of the child. That should stop incarceration right there. Because how is putting a child's, I'm saying father because it's usually father, but how is putting a child's parent in jail in any way in the child's best interest?
And I agree with that. But then let's take the extreme. What would be the end result of? Let's just say on the extreme side, John Smith hasn't paid Mary Smith child support in 2 years. He's claiming he's not working, but he is, and he goes from job to job. Hasn't paid a dime. What's the incentive or the detriment to John paying Mary what he owes?
Well,
her?
let's put, if he is going
Short
to
of jail,
if he
take
is
that
going
out.
job to job and he's getting paid on the books,
Or
they
he's not.
garnish it.
Let's say he's not.
So-
Let's say he's not working because for spite because he doesn't want to pay child support.
You know what?
do you
That could happen if you're married too.
It could, but
I mean, you can't take the whole law and put it all. But to me,
What I'm asking is, I agree to the incarceration. So if you don't use incarceration on that extreme, what would you use instead?
but listen,
What would be
not working is a punishment to the person who's not working. He's not
Yeah,
living very
yeah,
well if
yeah.
he's really not working.
or if he's living with somebody else who's paying the bills, or she. I mean,
You really did take a contrarian pill this morning.
well, when you talk about issues, you got to look at all sides. And
Well, let's say create whatever side you want to. This is an obviously better
what
way
would
to
you
do it.
What's the detriment or what's the fear of that person?
No, it's important to have your input. I'm only
take
joking with
incarceration
you.
on the table. So now he's not afraid of that, or she is.
Well, he's worried about his pay getting garnished when he does get a job. I mean, like
Who has a job, doesn't have a job all of a sudden, can't pay child support? Who feels good about that?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, there's strange people out there. I agree with you.
But listen, you can't take every there's the women who
There's
say,
an
well,
exception for every rule.
Listen, my kid should be getting this much money. Well, when you were married, how much did he make? Well, he was a bum when we were married and never worked either.
Yeah.
But I'm entitled to get this.
Good, you'll get used to that then.
He didn't make the money, so go out and get a damn job yourself and
that's
earn a
different
living. This is
extreme.
America.
Again, based on the circumstances of each individual case.
But this is
That's all.
America. We say women have the same rights as men. We're fighting for equality in pay. Go out and earn a living just like the men.
Right, like the Scandinavian example.
Go out and earn a living.
They don't have a child support situation anything like ours. They create a joint custody situation.
You're creating a welfare
The
system.
higher income earner pays a little
Right.
bit more than the other
Right.
one, and they match up. As a matter of fact, the fathers are way more involved in Scandinavia than they are
Way
in this
more.
country. Here they're excluded from the family. In Scandinavia, they're a part of it.
Right.
So I don't see where any of that's going to be good. All right, let's talk about one or two more in the remaining few minutes we have. The law guardian. Do we need a law guardian?
For the-
I mean, it's
for
an
the children.
interesting thought.
For the children.
Do we need him?
My feeling is it's a scam. It's a bunch of crap to get more money out of people. There's no reason. First of all, it used to be that they were looking out for the best interest. How does a lawyer know it's in the kid's best interest?
Right.
Now it's an attorney for the
And they
child.
may not have kids themselves. They may not even know what to do
Yeah,
with the
but
kids.
now they call it the attorney for the child, and their job is to do what the child wants. So my question, at what age can the child decide? Do they go to a 4-year-old and say, who do you want to live with, mommy or daddy? That's what I'm going to fight for. That's ridiculous. And you look at the whole scam of the system. If you're in family court, you don't pay for a law guardian, attorney for the child. The state pays for it.
Okay.
They pay $75 an hour to these loser lawyers who can't get a regular job. When you're in Supreme Court, now it's the client pays because you're in Supreme Court.
Wow.
Now you're ordered to pay $150 an hour for the same loser lawyer. There's a lawyer, Kathy Small, couldn't be a lawyer out of a paper bag. I mean, the worst lawyer. She's scared of every judge. Whatever the judge tells him to do, that's what this woman does. and I had to pay $150 an hour.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
Let's add the idea that you're going to record something. We know that we want the recording in the courtroom. We want cameras, we want audio recording. What about bringing as evidence? Does that matter? Somebody bringing in, I have evidence that he had a phone call and bringing it in. Does that ever happen in the court? Or
Well, you can. I mean, the rules of discovery aren't the same as they are in criminal court. So in family court, they're a little bit more lenient. You can bring in a recording, and then you can play it, and then ask the other person, "Is this an accurate description of what happened?" A lot of times in court, listen, I tell people when they're getting divorced, never be around your spouse without a recording. And then when the kids make allegations, now record your kids. It's a sad thing, but you have to protect yourself. Unfortunately, the courts many times will say, they'll order people, do not record your child. But it's sad because the child is used as a weapon many times.
As a tool, absolutely. Yeah.
So listen, it's not great. Nobody wants to record their child, but you have to protect yourself sometimes. And to me, the judge should never say, don't record your child.
Yeah.
But when we talk about these issues, and as we go, and I'm sure we'll have other programs about this, I think we should really try to focus on, okay, so this is what it is. What would we put into the law? If we were able to write the domestic relations law, rewrite it, what would we rewrite it? What would it say?
Well, you want us to be a little bit more specific than where we are today?
And how would it work?
This is a highlight film show, all right? We're doing the best we can
with
what we think will work.
Concept to really dig into it and say, okay, this is what it should say, and this is why. Rather than say this doesn't work.
Okay, our last one on the list, believe it or not, with 2 minutes to go. It was 2.5 minutes to go. 9 a.m. court times.
I mean, if any of our viewers have been to court, you get a pink ticket. They may as well pre-write on them, show up at 9 a.m. Well, the judges don't show up till 10 o'clock. Right. So now you just wasted an hour of your legal fees. And then you got 50 people standing there. This is ridiculous. Many times the judges never show up, and then you pay your lawyer. To me, it's part of the game. It's to win. The lawyers don't complain; they love it.
And try as an attorney showing up at 9:15 if the judge is there at 9.
Right. I mean, to me, you should have an appointment. You have appointments. You set it up. There's a 9 o'clock. There's a 10 o'clock. There's an 11. You space it out. It's just common courtesy to do to people. It's just not fair to make people who sometimes many times borrowing money to pay that lawyer. And you're paying $4.50 an hour. Your lawyer gets there at 9, and you're out of work. Right. It's just ridiculous. You know what? Set the time, and if the judge isn't there, you know what? That's part of his rating. He showed up for work late, just like everybody else. And you know what? When we do our review at the end of the year, he didn't show up for work. He's off the bench. He couldn't get out of bed on time.
Haven't you ever been? I know I was myself there all day.
Absolutely. Yeah. But many times you go and they say, okay, taking a break for lunch. Sorry, we didn't hear you. Come back at 2:30. How much did that cost you? $1,000?
If you're lucky.
Well, we managed to get through it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I hope all these suggestions we've made are not only been a little bit funny because we did a good job here, but also we'll try to do that. We'll try to focus and make something a little bit more serious about our effort. Societal and political changes are rapidly breaking down the family that once was a cornerstone of our great American culture. And at FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV, of course, every single week. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.